Welcome to Flourishing Flame, from burning out to burning bright with therapist and coach Leah Brown. Are you a people helper or caregiver, feeling overwhelmed, distant, cynical, and crispy around the edges? Join me to defeat burnout by learning how to manage stress and create deep connective relationships with others so that you can pursue your calling, providing light and warmth to those around you. Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of the Flourishing Flame podcast. My name is Leah Brown, and I am your host. There's a book I remember from my childhood. It's called Go Dog Go, and it was actually written in 1961, and it was written and illustrated by P.D. Eastman. In the book, there are these two dogs that keep meeting up, and one of the dogs says, "Do you like my hat?" And over, the yellow dog says, "No, I don't like your hat." And then at the end of the book, in the last time that the dog asks, "Do you like my hat?" she has this hat. I'm going to try to describe it. If you've read the book, you know the hat. And it has all of these different things hanging off of it. It has a spider and a pinwheel and a plant and a pot. It has a cane and a mop and candy canes and a fish. And it looks bizarre. And when it's the last hat, he says, "Yes, I love that hat." And it was her party hat. And I think that a lot of us can identify with having lots of hats that we're wearing. If we could look at these different hats as different roles that we have, we go through our lives with a lot of hats, a lot of roles, and even a lot that we can have at the same time, almost like her party hat with all those different things on it. We have our personal life hat. We have our professional life hat. We have the role that we have with our children versus our spouse versus our friends. Several years ago, I was working with a coach. Her name is Erin, and she challenged me to find a structure that would help me to see my roles in my life at the time. And I had started thinking about it from the hat perspective, and then I shifted and I realized that for me, it was more like the facets on a jewel. Each one of those little sides of the jewel is a different perspective. And being able to see those different roles was really helpful for me. As we're talking about the different roles that we have roles that have to be prioritized in different ways. And I wanted to take us through this idea of looking at our roles. Yes, we have a lot of them like the facet of a diamond, but we also have them in different priorities. And so I'd like for us to look at this sense of priority through the idea of a bullseye, these concentric circles that go from small to large. And not everyone's circles are going to be identical. And they're not going to be identical to the order that I'm going to outline here. It's just one example. Claim what works for you and adjust where you need to. The center of our concentric circles are ourselves. We have a responsibility to the role that we play in our own lives. In Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, Rule 2 is treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. He cites in that chapter that people are better at fulfilling and administering medication to their pets than they are to themselves. It's important that we take that role seriously. The next ring in our circles includes our closest relationships. For many of us, there are families. It might also be close friends that are sometimes closer than family. And if we go to the next circle, it may include your friends, your social community, might include your faith community, or your neighbors. And then we kind of move out from there to maybe the people we work with, our coworkers, supervisors, or those that we supervise. And then we can move out from there to our clients, our customers, our students. And then moving out further, we reach our regular acquaintances. That might be someone who works at your grocery store. It might be your mail carrier or the teller at the bank that you usually go to. Each of these roles has tasks and responsibilities that are part of those quadrants that we talked about in the last episode. As we're looking at the different quadrants for each role, I want to give you just some examples and then something that you can do to take with you. For a quick review, quadrant 1 is those things that are important and urgent. Quadrant 2 are those things that are important but not urgent. Quadrant 3 are those things that are urgent but not important. And quadrant 4 are those things that are not urgent and not important. So if we look at the different roles that we have and how those tasks fall into different quadrants, I just wanted to give you some examples. Quadrant 1, urgent and important. When it comes to our closest inner circle, ourself, these crises and deadline driven projects might be a health appointment for an urgent concern, or filing your taxes, or getting your oil changed. When it comes to our family, it's often meeting urgent needs, from basics like making sure we have food in the house and providing meals for our family. Or it could be things like planning for a fast approaching birthday party. When it comes to urgent quadrant 1 activities, urgent and important, dealing with other people outside of the people we're responsible for, it often is deadlines occurring within work or with events that you are a part of. For example, I'm hosting the salad course for a progressive dinner that our church is having next weekend, which means that I will need to make sure that we company clean the house before that happens. With acquaintances or people outside of one of those inner circles, a quadrant 1 activity would be something that's an emergency that happens in front of us. Often, those urgent things that happen with people in the outer rings of our lives end up being quadrant 3 activities. And I'll mention that a little bit more in a minute. So, quadrant 2 activities are those things that are important, but they're not urgent. Those are the things that are in the quadrant of quality. And those are the things that we act on. The preparation, the prevention, values clarification, planning, those types of things fall in quadrant 2. And so if we're looking at quadrant 2 in a personal vein, then it could be something like a regular exercise routine that we know we want to work on. It can be reading something that helps us to just relax and reset. In our family or inner circle, it could be teaching or planning or investing in the relationship. It can be assisting those people that we're close to. For example, I have a child that is filling out a summer job application that needs a little help with getting that done. It can be making sure that you schedule special times with your spouse or your partner, like making sure that you continue to go on dates even if you've been in a long-term relationship. It could be planning a vacation with your family or planting a garden, which could turn into a quadrant 1 task if it takes too long. With others outside of that inner circle, it can be leading a meeting or sending correspondence to keep everyone on the same page. It could be creating a schedule or a report format that makes life or communication easier. With those outer rings of acquaintances, it can be being kind. Building relationships with our regular acquaintances is great for our community, and it helps those who help us to feel appreciated. Those things like noticing someone's name when they're checking out your groceries and saying thank you using their name. It's not an urgent thing, but it's those little important things that make a difference in other people's lives. Quadrant 3 is that urgent but not important quadrant. And often our personal quadrant 3 items, those urgent things that are not really important to us, are phantoms of quadrant 1. They're the things that are other people's quadrant 1 items that kind of get pushed onto us. Often when we think that we're in quadrant 1 with these different activities that are coming towards us, it's really quadrant 3. So some examples would be if someone else made a commitment that they need your urgent help with, we have a choice to look at the bigger picture and see, is this one of those close-in circles? And this might represent an opportunity for us to move it from a quadrant 3 activity to our personal quadrant 1 opportunity. For example, if it's a relationship that needs fertilization for it to grow, it may be a gift to that relationship or that person to assist, like helping a friend move with short notice or helping a child to edit a paper that's due the next day. We need to make sure that it is a conscious choice on our part and not an urgency-driven quadrant 3 situation, where quadrant 3 tends to be an other person urgency. Quadrant 4 usually is more self-focused on personal activities of escape. Those things like death scrolling on our phones or mindlessly watching TV, or like I mentioned last time, procrastinating or doing those things that keep us from really engaging in the important things in life that we engage in as a way to escape. All of these activities that I've mentioned and that we've talked about are just an outpouring of the different activities we have for the different roles that we have in our lives. And each of those roles comes with its own list of activities and tasks that all fit in one of those 4 quadrants. And the more that we understand what our role is and the preeminence of that role, it can help us to see where those things fit. Because as we've been talking, the activities that are falling in quadrant 1 are more those activities that are people that are closest to us. And the same with 2. When we manage our roles well and our requirements for those roles well, we'll find that most of the things that we're doing are in those quadrant 1 and 2 places, and even mostly in quadrant 2, and that it helps us to limit the things that are happening in our lives that are urgent, where we have someone who's not in our inner circle who is needing something that someone else actually could do, but we jump in and do it and cause more stress and pressure in our lives because we're trying to do so much for so many people instead of being able to say, what are the priority roles that I have? And being able to put those at the forefront. So I told you I'd give you something that you could do to kind of take with you, and that is to take a few minutes and draw out your concentric circles. Where do people fit in them? And what are those roles that are the most important for you? Those relationships that are the most important? And being able to prioritize those activities for those relationships. And as you do that and you can prioritize them in order of importance, it will help you to see what are the things that you really want to be doing. What are those things that are in quadrant 2 that make the most of the time that you have? And that will allow you to see what are the things that just need to kind of fall by the wayside because they're not as important and they eat up time and eat up motivation and eat up the opportunities we have to spend our limited resources, our time, our attention, and our funds to be able to focus on the things that really matter the most. If this episode has benefited you in any way, I would love to find out, and I would love for you to leave me a comment on whatever platform you're listening so that it makes it easier for other people to find it too. And it's an encouragement for me to know what is the information that is the most beneficial to you. Until next time, take care. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode added kindling to your flame, please leave a review and pass it on to a friend who could use some encouragement. You can connect with me and find additional resources at leahlittlebrown.com. Now go forth and burn in all your brilliance.